Hello, this is Michael Silhavy, Senior Editor at GIA Publications, and with me is Father Michael Joncas, who is visiting GIA as we are talking about a new collection that he is working on to be released in the summer of 2018. So welcome back to GIA.
Thank you so much.
A new collection, always exciting. Tell us about this collection, what's on it, and what we can look forward to.
It's a series of pieces that I've written over the last 3 years or so and have stockpiled. A centerpiece for them will be settings of the 3 canticles that appear in the Liturgy of the Hours. So the Canticle of Mary, the Magnificat, Canticle of Zechariah, the Benedictus, and the Canticle of Simeon, the Nunc Dimittis. And all 3 of them I wrote in thanksgiving for the Federation of Diocesan Liturgical Commissions. They very kindly gave me an award a few years ago for my work in liturgical ministry and in music. And I thought the best way I could thank them for that gift was to write these settings.
And I think you have also sought to cast them in a form that they're not metrical settings, they're not refrain verse settings. You're kind of exploring a different construct, as it were.
I am. And I'd like to give the credit to Paul Inwood, who some years ago made reference to what he called a psalm tune rather than a psalm tone. I'd grown up, of course, with the Gregorian psalm tones and was quite used to how they operated. But his great insight was that, at least for English language singing, a lot of the folk tradition had verses that were not metrical, but the singer knew how to make those verses work because there was a kind of melodic structure that you then put the new texts into. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do with these psalm tunes as a form for the canticles.
Let's listen to a little bit as an example. I know one of the songs that's going to be featured in this collection has been a song that a lot of congregations and communities have embraced these past few years. It's entitled A Place Called Home. And can you say something about both the origin of the composition itself, what you tried to do with the text, the tune that you chose that people will find quite familiar.
Quite familiar.
And tell us about this one.
Okay. The genesis of the piece is really one of the last trio concerts that David Haas, Marty Haugen, and I did in the Twin Cities area. We were invited to sing a benefit concert for the homeless in the Twin Cities. And I'm very pleased to say that we made about $40,000 in that concert. And I was frankly flabbergasted, but I'm very happy that we did that because it's such an important cause. Originally, since this was going to be a concert of the 3 of us, it was a simple piano accompaniment, some guitar chords in it as well, but just basically piano accompaniment. But I also knew that I wanted it to be used for weekend worship. So I have one that I consider more a folk version, strong piano accompaniment with guitar chords and some woodwinds. And then an alternative, which is for SATB choir with organ accompaniment. And I honestly think it works well in both forms.
And as a hymn, it's probably been accorded the highest honor by being placed in our new ritual song hymnal, already sensing this is a text and a tune that we want people to sing for generations to come. So thanks for that piece. Let's take a listen. Being a presbyter of the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis, and having happily worked there for 17 years myself, I want to suggest or assume there may have been a little bit of delight and happiness when you were asked to write a new piece, a setting of the Magnificat, for the installation of the new Archbishop about a year and a half ago, Archbishop Bernard Hebda in the Twin Cities. So can you tell us a little bit about that piece and how it came to be?
Sure. You are absolutely correct. There is, just as I can say there's nothing more delightful than having a fellow composer invite you to write a piece, there's nothing better for a member of a particular archdiocese than to have the archdiocese ask you to write for an important archdiocesan event. I used a text that made inclusive language reference for God. My soul gives glory to the Holy One, for example, and that has a strong congregational refrain. But then the verses given to an SATB, but eventually an SSAATB choir. So a more developed choral resources, as you'd expect for a major diocesan event. Organ, brass, quintet, and timpani. So very high festivity kind of piece.
And this Magnificat was used for the evening prayer too?
Right. It was used twice, which was great. The Vespers of Welcome was on a particular night at our basilica, the co-cathedral for St. Paul Minneapolis Archdiocese. And that, of course, would be part of evening prayer. So the Magnificat is the gospel canticle. And then the next day, at the actual Mass at the cathedral, we sang it as the communion hymn. And I was very pleased. The refrain was able to be picked up by people in both settings and sung without too much difficulty. And that's always a concern you have as a composer. How do I get the assembly to sing a new melody when they're coming to it kind of cold?
As a publisher, as a practicing church musician, we're still looking for new Mass settings. And it's been fun to see our customers asking, are there any plans for a revision of Mass A or Mass B or Mass C? And I think one of the most frequent requests we have had is for a revision of your Psallite Gloria. And I'm happy to let folks know that you indeed are up to that task and you have revised it.
I have. Let me simply further the question that you were posing there, and that is to say it's a wonderful opportunity for a composer to find out what actually worked and what didn't work. So it's fairly clear to me that the experiments I made in the Psallite Mass with the acclamations, the Holy, Holy, Memorial Acclamation, Amen, didn't work. And they can happily go into oblivion, right? But the Gloria did work. And people, a significant number of people said this is something where the congregation picked up the refrain almost automatically, and we really want to have a new setting, the new text set, so that we can use it. And that's exactly what I did. Went back and rethought how the melodic kernels might be distributed differently with this new text.
And you have set it in a way that allows it to be done in a refrain setting or through composed.
Exactly, yeah. At the time that I was originally doing it, it seemed that the instructions we were getting were that refrain settings were the ones we should be doing, because that would be an easier way for a congregation to learn their parts. Since then, our bishops have said, well, in fact, it's quite possible to have through composed settings that a congregation will be able to sing. So I wanted to use this same melodic material and have it work for both, either a refrain setting or a through composed.
And you've also provided some flexibility with scoring, guitar, piano,
Right.
playable on organ, woodwind instruments.
Right. And I have to again give my salute to Marty Haugen, because Marty, with his massive creation, really showed many of us how it's possible to write a piece that will work in so-called folk form or classical form. In fact, he was creating something beyond those forms. But yeah, I salute Marty as the one who really gave that idea to me.
You have another piece on the recording called Deep and Lasting Peace. And I'm happy that it was done with a little bit of nudging from one of our GIA composers, Ephraim Feely in Ireland. And tell us about this piece. I first heard this piece when you, Marty Haugen, and David Haas were honored by St. John's University in Collegeville as the recipients of their Pax Christi Award. We sang this piece at a little reception lunch gathering afterwards, and it struck me right away as something I want to add to my repertoire in the parish. So tell me about this piece.
Well, it's wonderful when a fellow composer asks you to write something. There's nothing like peer appreciation to really make your day. So Ephraim asked me to write the piece for his girls' schola. He teaches a full-time, I think, in addition to his weekend work, teaches at a school in Ireland. And so he left the text open to me, and I searched around for some things that I thought would be appropriate to Irish culture and at the same time broad enough for usage in the English-speaking world. I loved writing for SSA. I very rarely do that, but it was a chance to make some of the same kind of sounds that I loved from Benjamin Britten's Ceremony of Carols, the beauty of female voices. Now, it doesn't use a harp as the accompaniment, but it does have just a little sense of that kind of Britten-esque writing. It's refrain verse form. The verses are an ancient Irish poem that I found, and the refrain simply seeks that deep and lasting peace would be the gift given to us by God. So pretty happy with it.
And originally scored for women's voices, you've since scored it for SATB voices?
and SAB voices.
Even better.
As I grow older, I try more and more to make the things I write useful for different sizes of ensembles.
In